Hello, hello, hello. I'm here and I can barely see, but I really wanted to participate and make sure I had a cosplay on. Today's show is in partnership with Virtual Con, which is brought to you by Brooklyn Comic Con. I'm very honored to be a part of this today, and today I am going to be sharing with you guys some cosplay tips. Now, if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, you can actually leave me a comment and I'll throw it up on the screen the best that I can. Is anyone there? Well, Randy's here. Randy says, "Hey, Storm." Hi, Randy. I'm going to try my best to try to read the comments and coordinate everything. It's a little tricky to see, but I'm here and I have nothing to fear, okay? So if you have anything to say or any questions at any time, feel free to jump in, leave me a comment, share this video with your friends so that more people can see it and we can cosplay take over the world. Okay. So I guess I'll get started because this is supposed to be about an hour. Alicia's here. Good evening. Hello. Hello. So I'm very excited. Should I get started or should I introduce myself? I should introduce myself because there are going to be some people watching the stream who are like, who the heck is this girl? David says, hello. Hello. Imogen says, you look amazing. Thank you. Hannah says, hello, hello. Your contacts look amazing. Thank you very much. They gave me a little bit of a hard time today. Okay, so for those of you who are watching for the first time, maybe you are coming from Brooklyn Comic Con, maybe you're coming from the Virtual Con website, maybe you've never seen me or heard me before. My name is Anja. I'm the true showgirl. I'm a performer and a cosplayer. I make outfits, I sing and dance, and I'm here to share with you guys some cosplay tips this evening. So if you never heard me before, it's nice to meet you, and if you've seen me before, welcome back. I'm pretty familiar with live streams. I do have a twice weekly live stream that I do called Pajama Party that I'll actually be doing right after this stream. So if you like it, like or subscribe to my page and then you'll get all the notifications so you can pajama party with me. And after this, we're going to be pajama partying and I will be drinking some wine and we will be playing some Jackbox games. So it'll be fun. Yes, this is the shirt from Sincere Sally. It looks good on Storm. It is. All right, let's get into it because I don't want to run overtime. And this is going to be my first time doing kind of a panel for a convention. And also, not only am I doing a panel for a convention, I'm also doing it on a live stream. So let's see how this goes. So today's panel is going to be Cosplay Fabrics 101. So the number one thing that people ask me about for cosplays is one, hoop skirts, and two, fabrics. Fabrics can really make or break your cosplay. It's the difference from looking, something's out of this world or looking a little bit slapped together. So I want to give you guys some tips to help you with selecting fabrics. So a lot of the craftsmanship in cosplay happens before you even start cutting or sewing. Selecting your fabrics is really important. Now, because this is about an hour-long panel, I'm going to start at the very, very beginning, the very, very basics. And this is for people who don't know how to sew. They're not really interested in sewing. They just want to make cosplay. So let's get started. So woven or knitted. These are the two main fabric groups that you're most likely going to be sewing with. Woven fabric or knitted fabric. And this is going to be one of the first things that you need to determine when you are making your cosplay. Now, I've worked in a fabric store, so I've had the experience of cosplaying and going into a fabric store, but also the experience of working at the fabric store and having people bring in their cosplays that they want to make or their botched cosplays and asking me what went wrong. And a lot of the time, it's the wrong choice of fabric. So let's talk about what's the difference between woven and knitted fabric. Now, if you guys are following along, give me a smiley face emoji or a star eyes emoji so I know that you guys are still hearing me and seeing me. All right, so woven fabrics are fabrics with typically little to no stretch. So examples are cotton broadcloth or satin or twill. These are your fabrics that generally they'll lay flat and they will not have a lot of stretch to them. Let me see if I can grab for you an example from my costume bin. All right, this is one of my burlesque costumes. Okay, so this is a woven fabric. It does not have stretch, and the fibers of the fabric are basically kind of like laying on top of each other like hashtags. Randy's here. Randy, did you give me star eyes emojis? Yeah, Alicia's giving me star eyes emojis. Okay, amazing. So you guys are following along. Awesome. Okay, so woven fabrics are best used for structured garments like cargo pants or corsets, ball gown skirts. You don't want to use a woven fabric for something that is very tightly fitting unless you are making something like a corset and you know what you're doing. If you are a beginner sewer, do not try to make something woven tight fitting, because any mistakes that you have it's not going to be really forgiving. So if you're going to be a beginner, I would recommend woven fabrics for things that are skirts, loose pants, loose shirts, things like that. And it is important to know that some woven fabrics will also wrinkle. So that's something to keep in mind. And woven fabrics must be hemmed or else they'll unravel because of the way that they're done. If you've watched my recent YouTube video, I received a garment that was not finished and it had the threads poking out because, you know, woven fabrics are made like a hashtag. So those extra threads will be poking out and they'll unravel. So you have to hem them so that folds them back in and sews over them to keep them in place. Let's see, getting some comments. Hannah says, yes, I knitted several face masks and I wanted to upcycle an old tank top as the liner. Yes, that's great. Imogen's here. Sir, this is a store. Ooh, hold on a second. You get whatever storm you get because I don't know if you know. It's a pandemic. And also, it's hot AF. This is a closet cosplay storm, okay? Baby. And there is no OG storm because there's about 55 different versions of storm, baby. So I know she does not wear Sincere Sally, but she wears Sincere Sally today, honey. Okay, this is educational storm. Stop yelling at the fans, Keandra. Okay. Stop yelling at the fans, true showgirl. Okay. So that's woven fabrics. All right. So here's an example of woven fabrics. And I actually have the costume piece here. Yay! Boobies! Okay. So the base of this is cotton broadcloth with tulle overlay. So I put tulle on top. And then there's a polyester satin, which is here. And then there's a big tulle skirt. So these are made out of woven fabric. So this outfit actually does not stretch. So this is not necessarily, maybe the tutu for beginners, but if you don't know how to do fasteners, then maybe try something easier. Now, one of the best things you can do if you're not really good at sewing fasteners, you don't know how to sew hooks or clasps or zippers yet, I really recommend using Velcro. Now, don't use, look at these like loose threads. This has gone around the Showgirl circuit a couple times. Don't use a sticky Velcro because most likely it's not going to be strong enough to withstand being opened and closed. But if you can sew around the Velcro, then that's a good place to start for your costume, especially if you're doing it for a showgirl act where you're going to throw it off like me, or if you're a cosplayer and you're just beginning to learn how to sew and you don't necessarily want to use zippers or anything like that. Marcy says, didn't mean it as a complaint at all. Okay, good, honey, because woo! Love you. Thank you for watching. This is a heat wave. The heat wave storm is right, honey. Ooh, there she is. Look at that hair, though. Double cheeked up. Like a superhero. That's the way I like it. All right. Okay, so now we've covered our woven fabric example. Let's move on to knitted fabrics, aka knits. You'll see them labeled as knits a lot. So knits can be two-way stretch or four-way stretch, and if you are doing cosplay, you want to pay attention to this. if you are in the store and you're trying to determine if it's a two-way stretch or four-way stretch, first thing you'll do is you'll pull it side to side like this. Do I have anything? Aww. Sorry, my costume bin is like literally everywhere because I was trying to find things to show you guys. But you pull it this way and see if it stretches, and then you'll pull it the opposite direction. So it should stretch all four ways if you're going to be doing, you know, a superhero cosplay, because those kind of cosplays, you want them to stick to every curve, bump, and whatever in your body. So the four-way will curve around everything, whereas the two-way will only stretch sideways. So it's not going to give you the same look. So if you're doing a sexy cosplay and you want everything on display, that's going to go for your four-way stretch. So knits are stretchy by the way that they're constructed, because just like knitting, with knitting needles, knit fabrics are made the same way, only it's done with thread. And they'll be very extra stretchy if you're looking for spandex, lycra, or elastane. So if you're really trying to get a superhero tight, shrink wrapped look, you're going to want to look at the content of the fabric, and it'll tell you if it contains spandex, lycra, or elastane. Those are the fibers that you're looking for to really get that stretchy stretch. And this is extra handy if you're shopping online for fabric, as some cosplayers do, especially if you need something really unique. So sometimes knits can be left unhemmed depending on your cosplay. So I'll give you an example. I think I put an example in here. Oh, the example is coming. So sometimes knits don't have to be hemmed, because if you cut them, some of them will not unravel. Most of them will not unravel. So you can actually leave it unfinished depending on your look, especially if you're doing a character that's maybe a little bit more tribal, a little bit more traditional, and not so futuristic. Maybe the fabric will not be hemmed. So that might be a good place to start if you don't know how to sew. All right, so here's some possible questions you guys might have. And if you have any questions that you want to add in, feel free to send them on Facebook or on YouTube. Hopefully, I will see them, I'll throw them up, and I will answer them to the best of my ability, because I was just trying to go by the most common questions that I get. But I'm here for you live, so if you have any other questions you want to ask about sewing or cosplay or crafting, I'm here to answer. So please feel free to send them, and I will not jump down your throat, or I'll try not to anyway. Okay, so question, I don't have a sewing machine, but I want to make cosplay. What can I use? So I get this question a lot, and you do not have to sew in order to do cosplay. Cosplay is about expressing yourself as characters and pop culture looks that you like, so you don't have to sew. I mean, sewing definitely helps. Part of the reason I learned to sew is because I wanted to do cosplay, but you don't have to be able to sew to do cosplay. So if you have no interest in learning sew, you just want to put something together, I recommend using cotton or polyester woven fabrics that are not satin. And by not satin, I mean fabrics that are not, remember this top that I showed you, it's kind of got like a shiny aspect to it. Also, you know, those ball gowns and things like that. I might have one in here. Though, well, I have other things in here, but ball gowns and things like that, the really shiny princessy fabrics that you get your costumes in, those fabrics won't stick as well, because when you use a fabric glue to stick your fabric together, you want to use a nice flat woven fabric so that the fabric glue will go through the fibers and then kind of harden there. So it will kind of lock them together tightly. If you use something that stretches, it's never going to have the same effect. And then also, once that fabric starts to stretch, the glue will crack and then it will split open. So I don't recommend using fabric glue for anything that's stretchy. You can also, if you want to cosplay and you don't know how to sew, you can just focus on your simple accessories. So maybe you'll sew a symbol on your hat to do Ash Ketchum, or maybe you'll sew a necktie to do a Sailor Scout. So maybe you'll sew something simple that will identify your character without having to sew the entire outfit, because hand sewing an entire outfit, I've done it before, I don't recommend it, and it's probably not worth it. So if you can find maybe a top and bottom that look like the colors of your character and then focus on hand sewing the accessories, that's a good place to start. And also just know you do not have to sew everything. It's okay to buy parts and build off of it. It's okay. Like, I meet so many people that think that they have to sew the entire outfit for it to be cosplay. No, I don't like gatekeeping. I think if you bought the outfit off the shelf and you wore it, that's great, because it's going to be one of a kind, because you're one of a kind wearing it. And if you sewed the entire thing from scratch and your hands bled, then that's also great. So don't feel like you have to sew to make a cosplay worth it. There's many other things that you can do, like using fabric glue, for example. All right, are you guys still with me? If you're still with me, send me some lightning bolt emojis. Send me some lightning bolt emojis. And if you've done a cosplay before, let me know what cosplay that you've done before. And I'm going to see if I can show you guys some more tips. So the next question is, I want my cosplay to look like leather or latex, but using those is too expensive. What can I use instead? Use vinyl. Chances are your sewing machine cannot sew leather. Most people's home sewing machines cannot sew leather, especially thick leather. Don't do it. It's okay. It's just cosplay. Go to your fabric store and go to the upholstery department and see if you can buy some vinyl, because often the vinyl will give you enough of the leather look and it's much thinner. You can also get stretch vinyl. So I have one of my favorite storm looks where I'm doing like it's my YouTube Facebook or my YouTube profile picture. That is made of stretch vinyl. It looks like it's latex, but latex is very, very expensive and latex is difficult to work with. So I use stretch vinyl to give me that latex look. Randy's here sending me some lightning emojis. Imogen says, my Lando cosplay is my favorite. I love your Lando cosplay. I think it's great. All right, let's see what we've got coming up next. Okay, so here's an example of an easy to sew cosplay. So this cosplay is my Orion Girl cosplay from Star Trek. And this one, the main thing about it is the body paint, of course. That's kind of difficult to ignore. The body paint is there, but if we actually look at the cosplay, it's very, very easy. The bands around my thighs and my ankles are vinyl, as I described, so you can get those from your fabric store in the upholstery section. And vinyl is a material that doesn't have to be finished, so you can just cut it into the shape you need and then use it. So I use the vinyl, I punch some holes out, and I put elastic to tie it around my thighs and around my ankles. And then for the belt is again a piece of vinyl, and I got some upholstery tassels from the fabric store. So the trim is already woven and it has those tassels on it, and it's supposed to be used to decorate curtains and things like that. So I actually just sewed one line along the belt, but you could probably do it with glue if you didn't have a sewing machine. And then the piece of fabric here that is kind of my loincloth is a cotton spandex blend, and it is a knit fabric. So you don't have to finish the edges. You can actually just cut it into the shape you need and then attach it. I sewed it, but again, you could definitely try to glue it onto the belt, just making sure that the part you glue is not going to have to stretch on anything. So an example of a costume like this, where it makes sense that the skirt is not hemmed, this is an example of a costume that you can do without having sewing very much. And as for the top, I actually got bra cups, and then I spray painted the bra cups, decorated them with more upholstery tassels, and then I just glued them to my chest. Easy peasy. Let's see. Hannah says, never had the chance to cosplay yet, but I would love to do a Seamus Armon Metroid armor suit. Hold on a second. I gotta Google that because I don't know what that is. Let me see that. Oh, Oh, he's from Nintendo. Nice. That's awesome. You know, I have someone you could talk to about that. My friend, my friend Tranquil Ashes, I did an episode with her on Behind the Screens. She does amazing armor builds, so you should definitely check out her stuff because she knows all about that armor. All right, let's move on to our next topic here. All right, so here's another question. I tried to sew my stretchy fabric, but it got all bunched up under my machines. Or I tried to sew my stretchy fabric, but after I sewed it, it didn't stretch anymore. So these are the two most common questions that I get about stretchy fabric. So sometimes when you're sewing a stretchy fabric, it can get kind of pulled and sucked into the machine and it gets all bunched up. Or when you're sewing stretchy fabric, if you are not using the right settings, what can happen is you sew it and it's all great, and then you go to stretch it and it doesn't stretch, or the seams bust. So this is all comes down to settings and technique. So I'm going to share some tips with you because I sew stretchy stuff all the time. The most ideal way to sew stretchy stuff is a serger, but if you're only sewing once in a while, it doesn't make sense for everybody's budget to go and purchase a serger, and there's ways to sew stretchy fabric without using one. So here's some tips. First tip is to go slow. Ease off the foot pedal and let the machine go. Like when you're sewing a stretchy fabric, the tempo should really be like your needle, like going fast is not the move. That's for cotton broadcloth petticoats. It's not for stretchy things. And also, if you're sewing a little bikini or a little like thong leotard, you're not sewing that much anyway. Slow down. Okay, next tip for stretchy fabric is use a new needle and a needle marked for stretch fabric. So needles marked for stretch fabric are usually thin and very, very sharp. And you want that so that it can pierce through the knitted fabric very cleanly without pulling anything with it. Because that's when you get your bunching up and maybe the top of the machine is going at a different tempo and tension than the bottom, and it gets messy. Okay, so use a wide and long zigzag stretch or a serger if you have one. So a wide and long zigzag stretch, so you get lots of space in between each hole that you're poking. You can cover more ground faster, and it'll be a bit more forgiving of a stretch. And now here, a true showgirl secret weapon. I'm about to give y'all some game right here that I use all the time when I'm sewing my cosplays and my costumes for the stage. Use a little bit of medical paper. Now, what I'm talking about, you know when you go to the doctor and you get up on the table and they have that crunchy, white, very thin paper like laid out on the exam table at the doctor? You can actually go to a medical supply store and you can buy a roll of that. So I always have a roll of that, and I got a roll of brown craft paper as well. So what you do is you take your fabric that you're sewing, your stretchy fabric, and you put it together how you're going to sew it, and you can pin it or clip it or whatever you're doing. But also the side that's going to be at the bottom of your machine, closer to where the bobbin is, you want to put a little bit of that medical paper along where you're sewing. So whatever piece of fabric you cut, have a piece of medical paper just as long. So when you sew and your needle's going along, your needle cannot push the fabric down to where the bobbin is, because there's going to be that layer of medical paper that's going to stabilize everything and kind of keep everything moving along smoothly. And another tip is also to drop, this is like really specific. If you don't know how to sew, you won't know what I'm talking about, but drop your feed dogs on your machine. Those are those little teeth that feed the fabric through. Drop those down on your machine so they're not playing anymore, and use the medical paper, and it will glide your project through. And after you're done, you just rip out all of the medical paper and you have a perfect seam. Randy says crafts are great. So anyone who's joining us now, if you have any questions about cosplay fabrics, crafting, or anything like that that you want to ask me about, I'm here for your pleasure to answer questions. And I'm mostly friendly. Sometimes I'm not friendly, but mostly I'm friendly, and I'm here to help. Okay, so another question. My cosplay looks boring. How can I ramp it up? So first things first, don't be so hard on yourself. It's really, in the age of social media, it can be really easy to compare yourself to other people. And you see people who've got these insane cosplays going on, and maybe you're just a beginner. It's kind of hard not to compare, but you really shouldn't, because everybody's coming at a different stage. You don't know, that person could have gone to school for fashion design, or, be a professional TV, what do they call it? Special effects technician. You have no clue what people are doing. You should cosplay and only compete with yourself and your own vision, okay? That's the first thing. Second thing, think outside the box with your fabric. And like I said at the beginning of this panel, most of the cosplay is done in the planning stages, and that's where it's going to be the difference between something that's amazing and something that's kind of just slapped together, or looks slapped together, that is. So especially when you're doing cartoon characters, they're just filled in with solid colors most of the time, and it will look a bit bland on a life-sized human being. So when you're doing a cartoon character, I think you should think outside the box and get a fabric with a texture, or maybe a small print that still kind of suits your character. For example, with Storm, instead of just using a black fabric, I have today this sheer black fabric with, I didn't make this. This is from Sincere Sally. Watch my latest YouTube video to see what I think. But if I'm sewing for Storm, I like to use velvet, or a sequin fabric, or a stretch vinyl to look like latex, not just black fabric, but something along the lines of a fabric that I think is a bit more lively and interesting than just using plain black. You can also use prints. For example, if you're doing a Disney princess or something, maybe use something with little flowers on it, or little polka dots on it, or a texture or something, instead of just having huge expanses of plain cotton, because it's not going to give you that luxurious look that you want. And go crazy with embellishment. So this is my specialty. I love to embellish. Example, this rhinestone covered. I like rhinestones on everything because I'm a showgirl and they look good. But you can embellish things in different ways. You can add different kinds of trims. You can incorporate solid fabrics with sheer fabrics. You can put glitter on things. You can add leather straps to things. Just adding more layers and more visual interest rather than just one type of fabric. And that's also an easy way, if you are not the best at sewing, that you can add more to your cosplay after the fact. So an example of a story is my first cosplay that I wore to a convention. I actually won the contest, and that was made out of fabric that I bought at Joann's fabric store, cotton, and some tulle that I think I ordered on Amazon. And then I took like 6 cans of spray glitter to it and just doused it in glitter. And it looks amazing. I still love that cosplay. And I won the competition. So you don't have to necessarily spend a lot on fabric. There's just interesting things that you can do throughout your process to add a bit more visual interest. When in doubt, glitter works. And also, take a bit of creative license. Accuracy is overrated. I feel like a lot of people are obsessed with being the most accurate cosplay or looking exactly like the comic book. And I don't mean disrespect, okay? My uncle draws for Marvel. But whatever's in the comic book is really just some guy with a marker drawing what he feels like drawing that day, okay? So this is your art. You don't have to, it wasn't drawn by God, okay? It was drawn by another artist. So you can take that person's art and you can do your own interpretation. And that might be an unpopular opinion, but I think accuracy is overrated, because I think accuracy is a ridiculous thing when we are cosplaying non-human characters, especially, or characters that have completely unrealistic bodies or, body types and looks and things like that. It's just, you're never going to be exactly like what is in the comic book or on the cartoon or on the movie. I mean, you can be close, but it's overrated. Don't stress yourself. If you are cosplaying a character, it's because you love that character. And the point of your cosplay should be to express yourself, express who you are, and express your love of that character. So you don't have to be 100% accurate, okay? This is not an OG Storm cosplay, but she's sexy. And I love Storm, and I think she's sexy, and that's how I'm going to channel Storm through my personality today. So there's no one's going to be like, oh, she's got the gray wig. Ugh. She's got the contacts, but I have no clue why she's cosplaying because she doesn't have a big X on her. It's okay. I'm sure you guys figured out I'm Storm. I'm sure if you're missing a few details from your cosplay, I'll be able to figure it out. And if anyone gives you a hard time, send them to me and I'll fight them. Okay. Here's an example of embellishment using one of my favorite cosplays, my Princess Tiana cosplay. So I did make this cosplay, and this was during one of my time periods where I was obsessed with making everything from scratch. I'm happy I did that because I wanted to practice all the skills, and this was a way to practice all of those skills. But having done this, I don't feel any pressure to make everything from scratch. So here we have a bunch of different fabrics going on, and we have different embellishments as well. And that's what really makes this Princess Tiana cosplay, because it is not exactly like it is in the movie. It's close enough that you know which princess I'm cosplaying, but I did take liberty artistically and some creative license with how I did the cosplay, and I encourage you to do the same thing and express yourself and your own aesthetic. So my Princess Tiana cosplay is heavily embellished. On the corset, I hand embellished it with some bottles of wine and rewatching Princess and the Frog a few times. I put silk flowers on it. I sewed on glass beads and Swarovski beads. I had shades of gold and shades of green that I was sewing. I also have a big piece of lace that's like got rhinestones all over it, and I've got little lace trims everywhere. On the back, I don't have a picture of the back to show you, but if you go through my Instagram or my Facebook, you can see the back. It's got like two big green silk flowers on the back that weren't in the movie, but I thought they were so pretty that I had to add them. And I have this silk, Dupioni silk petal, because I didn't want a sharp line between the bodice and the skirt. I wanted to kind of carry it down. And she's got some texture going on, which is what I really wanted to add, because I felt like if I just used one kind of fabric, it would look flat. So that's why I've got the silk Dupioni, I've got the rhinestones, the beads, the silk flowers, the lace going on. I have 3 layers of the skirt. Well, the skirt goes like this. There's a hoop skirt, and then there's the petticoat, and then there's these green skirts, and on top of the green skirts that are made of taffeta, which is kind of that wrinkly party dress material your mom probably made you wear if you were a little girl. Then your mom probably made you wear it when you were a little kid. And on top of that, I have the petals that I cut out of gold taffeta. And then on top of that, what I personally feel really makes this gown is the glitter tulle. So there's like this frothy layers of tulle that stand out from the dress. So it just adds a bit more visual complexity. Now, obviously sewing a corset by hand, that's advanced. I do not recommend that for everybody. But if you know how to sew a needle and thread, you know how to sew on a bead or something like that. So it's just time and thoughtfulness that will take you to the next level. I don't think this cosplay would have been lacking if I had purchased a corset and done the same thing. I mean, making it was special and it's sentimental for me, and I'm glad I did it, but you don't have to be an advanced sewer in order to make a good cosplay. If I had bought a dress, my very first Princess Tiana, actually, I bought a ball gown from Value Village, which is the thrift store, and I bought the gown on student discount day for $16. And I took that gown home from the thrift store. It was green, and I was probably 15 or 16 years old at the time, and I kind of cut the top of it and pinned it and sewed it to try to make the top look like leaves. And I picked some leaves off of the tree in my parents' yard, and I made a crown out of them, and I just added more glitter and more beads and things to it. And it wasn't any complicated sewing. It was just being a bit thoughtful and adding layers and texture. Let's see, I have some thoughts from the crowd. Okay, Hannah says, sketch, mood boards, and reference pictures are your best friends before starting a project. Exactly. The cosplay really comes together before you even start. Now, that being said, if you're, working and you get a stroke of inspiration, you want to go in a different direction, then you can do that. But if you're really trying to work on a masterpiece, just take your time and gather your materials. I would say spend 60% of your time gathering the materials, and then the rest of the time, take your time to sew or craft or whatever. That way you can, and try it on a lot as you go. Like, take a moment, stop, try it on, say, oh, this doesn't quite fit. You don't want to make the entire thing and then find out it doesn't fit or you don't like it. So try it on a lot as you go. You don't have to post pictures online or anything. Like, people love to do the work in progress. You don't have to do that. Just try it on. If you don't like it, try something else or change it or whatever. Randy says, yes, serving storm looks. Thank you. Cynthia says, I much prefer seeing people's creative interpretation of characters. Keeps it interesting to see various versions and what imagination comes up with. I completely agree, Cynthia. I love to see different people doing their interpretation of the character, because we know what the character is about. If I'm going to a con and I want to see cosplayers, it's because I want to see those characters brought to life. And that is actually through the filter of real people. And I don't think you have to look exactly accurate. I think it's overrated. I would much rather see somebody's personality come through when they cosplay a character. Randy says the Disney dress deserves its own video. Actually, yeah, I might have to do its own video, to be honest, because that dress is like got a lot going on. But it's just an example of embellishing fabrics. Now, we have a few minutes left, so let's see. So here are my final cosplay tips, okay? There will always be something to improve, so don't sweat it. I don't want people to put off cosplaying or not cosplay because they don't know how to sew enough or they don't have enough money or whatever. Who cares? Who cares? If you want to be Storm, okay, I have a video on YouTube called Gray Cosplay Wig Under $25. This wig was less than $25. So I put the specs of the wig. Go on my YouTube channel. Go purchase this wig, okay? These contacts are also on my YouTube channel. Purchase this wig and purchase these contacts. Throw on some black eyeshadow and a black outfit, and now you're Storm just like me. You don't have to spend a lot of money. Now, if you really want to do a masterpiece, you can work your way up to it. My first Princess Tiana dress, like I said, I would use leaves off of my parents' tree in their yard. You can work up to your favorite character. I'm doing different versions of Storm all the time. My goal is to have 50 different versions of Storm and just keep going and do different interpretations of how I see her personality through the filter of myself. So never feel like you shouldn't start because you can't be perfect. No one is perfect. And no one should be perfect because we're human. Just use cosplay to express yourself. It should be fun, first and foremost. Yes, you can enter competitions, but at the end of the day, it's all for the love of dressing up. And I think that's what you should focus on. Hello! You're just coming in at the end of my cosplay tips panel, but I am going to still be online for a few minutes more in this. And then if you don't want to say goodbye to me, I'm actually going to go live again with my usual Tuesday and Thursday pajama party where I will be taking off all of this, grabbing a bottle of wine, and just hanging out with the jammer. So everyone is invited to join me for that. We're going to be playing some Jackbox games tonight, so I'm very excited. Okay, so here's another one. Only body paint yourself colors that humans are not born with. Okay, so you'll see earlier in the show, I showed you guys my Orion Girl cosplay. I was painted green. Green is okay. I've also painted myself like a Na'vi person from Avatar. I painted myself blue. Blue's okay. You can paint yourself like Darth Maul. You can paint yourself red. Red is okay. But what you should not do ever is paint yourself a color that another human being was born with, because we're all human and we're all the same. And what does it say if you paint yourself, you know, the colors that our brothers and sisters of different skin colors were born with? They're not aliens. They're not robots. They're not animals. So you don't need to paint yourself a different color if you're portraying a human character, okay? And another big piece of wisdom, buy extra fabric. I know it's hard, okay? Because the fabric do be expensive. It really do. It really do be expensive, okay? But you can always trim off extra fabric, but baby, you can't glue on. You could try, but you can't extend the fabric. You can't make it longer. So if you're thinking, I think I could get away with 2 meters for this dress, but in your heart, you know you should buy 3x3, honey. Because if 2 is too short, you have to go back to the store and buy the whole 3, and the store might not have it. And you just had to spend extra money. So it's better to buy yourself a little bit of extra fabric, and then if you got leftover, you can use that to later mend your cosplay. Or you can use it to add extra features like a pocket or a bigger sleeve, or who cares, or an accessory to match. I love to make little purses to match my cosplays, because when I'm at the cons, you know, I don't necessarily want to be carrying around a backpack that doesn't match. So if I have leftover fabric, I kind of make a purse or a bag to match my cosplay. So there's a little tip. So I'm still here for a little bit longer. If you have any questions you guys want to ask me or ask Storm or say, but that's all for my very first convention panel, Cosplay Fabric 101. I hope you learned something. I hope you share this video with your friends who love to cosplay. I know it was very beginner friendly, but that was my intention, because I can always get more advanced as we go along, but I don't want anyone to ever, you know, turn the video off because they don't understand what's happening. I think it's, and also even if you are good at doing cosplay, sometimes it's nice to be reminded to buy extra fabric and slow down when you're sewing stretch fabrics. I think those are reminders that I need myself sometimes. So Bama Blur's here. He says, Wakanda forever. Yes, Wakanda forever. All right, you guys, I think I'm done for today's cosplay panel. You guys weren't that chatty, but that's okay. That's okay, because I'm going to be taking off my, you know, I might take off this wig on air. I'm not even joking, but I'm going to be taking out my contacts and starting to get out of my makeup. And I'll be back at 8 o'clock on the True Showgirl YouTube and Facebook for Pajama Party, which happens every week, twice a week. And I have some wine in the fridge that I'm going to get, and we're going to have a good time. So thank you all for watching. Thank you, Virtual Con, for having me to do this panel. I appreciate you guys bringing cosplay and conventions and geekdom to everyone in their homes. Due to the pandemic, you know, we can't have those conventions anymore, and it's definitely something that I'm missing. So it was an honor to be a part of this, and just thank you for inviting me. Thank you everybody who watched, and if you think of a question later on that I didn't cover in this panel. It's okay. Send it to my secret inbox and I'll answer it on Pajama Party. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Goodbye.